Here's the truth. A firearm doesn't give you permission. Training doesn't give you immunity. And adrenaline doesn't change the law.
By the time that they show you that they have a gun and they're reaching for it, your life is now essentially in immediate danger.
I didn't start the fight, so I'm innocent.
You were innocent up until the point that you were now the aggressor.
Most people would argue, they'd be in court arguing about, I was the victim, until you shot them 5 times. Hello and welcome to the Prepared and Proven podcast, where we focus on preparing for the day you hope never comes. I'm your host, Kenny DuBose Jr. You don't get judged by what you felt in the moment. You get judged by what you can articulate after it. In this episode, we're tackling a question a lot of people avoid until it's too late. Should I shoot or can I? The law isn't an afterthought, so we're breaking down legal thresholds, decision points, and why knowing the mechanics of a firearm means nothing if you don't understand the legal use of the force that governs it. Our guest today understands that readiness isn't about skill, it's about responsibility. Bakari Jenkins is a student of the DJR Empowerment Academy, a creative professional sharpening his craft in videography and editing, and someone who is actively building competence. He's learning what it means to make decisions that hold up before, during, and after the moment that matters. Let's get into it. So Bakari, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you today?
I'm doing excellent, man. I'll tell you what, y'all, that if you do, man, look, you want to see the behind the scenes of this one. But anyway, let's talk about the law.
Okay.
All right. So, as you know, we're talking about legal use of force and should you shoot, can you shoot? But before we get into that, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and what your background is?
Okay. Well, I am originally from the West Coast and then came over here through the military. Some parents were military. Well, my dad was military. Background, I'd say, in this context, my dad was always big on self-defense, especially with your hands. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that came from his background. His father owned a boxing gym, was a Golden Gloves boxer himself. So he saw the importance, not only from the physical aspect of being able to defend yourself, but also the beauty of the mental fortitude that it gives you. Mm-hmm. He saw a lot of, my granddad, the big thing for him was he wanted to build a gym in the hood. And that way the youth had a way to channel their anger out in a more positive way versus, going out and being brutal in the streets. Yeah. So my dad, like I said, saw the importance of that firsthand, so he made sure that we were in boxing very young. I remember getting my bell rocked. I was, 9, 10 years old, man. I mean, snot dripping, head ringing. I'm on the way home just still crying because I got my tail whooped. But it showed you just how quickly something can go from, being an easy situation to a very terrible situation. One wrong punch can really do you in. So he had us in, like I said, boxing. And then eventually, as we got older, I got into jiu-jitsu, a little bit of karate, but nothing to brag about. And then even just, a couple other things, kickboxing.
More than me.
I said, I'm no expert, right? Don't come and test me for karate. But yeah, so a lot of that was like I said, it brought the confidence of being able to defend yourself in almost any situation. Learning the hand game just because you want to be on your feet more than on the ground, right? With jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, if things go to the ground, because in a street fight, you never know what's going to come. You're able to pretty much handle yourself in any situation. He also taught us a lot about guns early on. Now, we weren't like huge gun fanatics, but he was always one who was big on being prepared. So we would be in the backyard practicing with the BB gun, trying to shoot a soda can, 15, 20 yards out. So sounds fun, but it's a little bit tougher than you think.
Yeah, that's a small target.
Yeah. When it's that far out, it's like this big. Yeah. So he was big on making sure that we not only knew the gun safety. I mean, it's a BB gun, so right. Mm-hmm. So we're not really going to be looking at causing any harm. Right. But the idea is, no matter what gun you have, whether it's a toy gun, a play gun, water gun, real gun, you treat them all the same. That's right. So you learn the basics of safety. We learn the basics of like breathing and technique. Actually shooting and aiming, all that kind of stuff. He taught us that, and we practice. I mean, sometimes we go out there every weekend and just practice in the backyard.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have fun when we go to the outdoor range.
Oh, come on, man. Come on. So yeah, that's pretty much, I'd say, is the background that I have.
Okay, all right, good. So you have an extensive background and some training and some hand-to-hand combat and things like that. So this is definitely the subject we want to talk about, because even with that, most people think that when you talk about legal use of force, it's either using a gun or a knife. Well, force is force, you know what I mean? Because if you you always have to act at the level of force that you have to act against. And that's a big thing. And people say, well, where is that line? That line is very thin. And it has to be in the moment when your adrenaline is pumping and when you're you may have gotten your bell rocked and you half dizzy, and all of a sudden now your training kicks in and you have to be able to, yes, defend yourself, but also not kill the person.
Right.
So let's talk about, because like I said, the title is Should I Shoot or Can I? So let's talk about should versus can.
Okay.
Right? Because should can be seen as kind of an emotional type statement or state, whereas can is illegal. Can you do this? Can you use your gun? Can you pull your gun? Can you threaten with your gun, or can you defend with your gun? All of these things, and then you have the should I. The problem with should is people can get themselves in trouble because they're overthinking it. Okay. So the question is, should you or can you, because should I is can be seen as an emotional state versus can you being a legal state. So, if you want to know, can you pull your gun? Can you use it? Can you do this? Can you do that? But the should I is kind of like the question you ask before, as it's happening. It's like it can cause paralysis. Right?
Yeah. Because
people don't have the mindset. And all of this is really a mindset. The mindset, what's your mindset going into a potential situation? And unfortunately, we don't get to choose when bad things happen. We just need to be able to react to it. We're always in the reactive state. So the question of should you can come into mind, and it could possibly cost your life. So you kind of have to know between the two. But let's talk about can you? Okay. Can you legally use your firearm in certain situations? So before you came into the class, you have this background in training, and you have these things that you've done and that you've seen. You've been trained by your dad, your granddad. What was your mindset on what can you do legally to defend yourself? What was your mindset?
A lot of it was thing that essentially you have to, kind of like you said, match the force that you're being met with. So, if somebody breaks into your house and they have a gun, well, okay, you can pull your gun, right? If somebody has a knife, well, you can pull your knife, maybe not a gun. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where my mindset was at before, was you essentially have to match. And if you're going to, let's just say somebody's coming at you with a knife and you pull out your gun, well, that may be too much force.
Right.
But then, well, I'll just stick to before the class. So it's very much thinking that you had to essentially use equal, I just say equal force because lesser force just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But at least equal, not necessarily greater force than what you're being met with, which obviously can be very tricky in the situation.
Right. So greater force. Would you consider greater force? Let's just say the person they have a pipe. Would you have to make the decision in the moment? Is pulling my gun greater force or equal force? A lot of people have trouble making that distinction. So in class, I try to teach them that, hey, if it could potentially end your life, then you kind of got to weigh that, because a bat could be used to hit a ball and play sports and play baseball and everything, but it could end your life if you get one good hit to the head. So let's talk about, I guess, innocence.
Okay.
All right. Because you mentioned innocence. Innocence people think that innocence kind of can be an act. Okay. Let me explain that. So I'm innocent if I don't do something. Okay. I didn't hit you, so I'm innocent. I didn't start the fight, so I'm innocent. What we talked about this, and give me an example that we covered in class that kind of surprised you on the level of innocence in the legal use of force type situation. What was the thing that stuck out most to you in class?
Okay, I'd say there was a scenario that we went through. And it was about this aggressor essentially pulling up on you in the alley. You take this alley to, it's a shortcut to your car, so that way you don't have to walk through the busy streets around the building or whatever. So this person pulls up on you, and you realize that they're reaching in their waistband to grab their semi-automatic. You pull out your gun, and essentially you don't wait to find out, right? They start pulling. You give your command saying, hey, stop, whatever, but they keep pulling. They go for it. You give the 2 shots. They then drop their gun. It slides into the dumpster, but they're still coming after you. Mm-hmm. Well, at that point, you're yelling commands. Don't come any closer. Don't come any closer. Stay away. Whatever. They keep coming at you, and you shoot again, and then you get away. I'm initially thinking, okay, cool. Like you defended yourself. You're fine. Mm-hmm. But then after we reviewed it, it's like, not quite.
Yeah.
There's a little more nuance to the story. So then, when we take it back and we're looking at 1, the gun slides under the dumpster. 2, you have pepper spray, and then 3, you're taking an alley to get to your car, which means that there's an escape route. Essentially, you can keep going the route that you were going and get away.
So you could have got a chance to run away.
Bingo. So it's like when you look at all of that, it's like you were innocent up until the point that you were now the aggressor, because this person is not armed, this person is not able to harm you, or you at least have other means aside from deadly force, the gun, to get to keep them away, repel the attacker, or retreat. So now that you have these other options at your disposal, I mean, when they're pulling out their semi-automatic, when they're pulling out their gun, period, not many options there, right? That won't cost you your life. But at that point, once, like I said, they're unarmed, they essentially can't harm you, they're bleeding, they're shot, probably stunned or in shock. You can now pepper spray, blind them so that way they can't chase you, run after you, get away. Or if you're fast enough, just book it.
Yeah. I'm not fast enough.
Hey, pepper spray it is.
Yeah, I'm not running. No, but in the moment I probably would, and my knees would probably argue with me later. Yep. But yeah, you're right. The thing to do at that point would be to run. And most people would argue. They'd be in court arguing about, I was the victim. Mm-hmm. Until you shot him 5 times after he was initially shot. Guys, your innocence, very thin line. All right. So, that's an excellent example. Excellent example. And most people think words can't remove their innocence either. If you call somebody out their name and, it provokes them into violence, well, you may not have started it, but you provoked it. You don't have the opportunity to use force. So, one of the other examples we talked about, if you go into a bar and someone bumps into you and you call them, different names and different things, profanity and so on and so forth, you just removed your innocence. Y'all get into a tussling match and you get the better of him and he pulls out a knife and you think I can pull my gun. He pulled this knife, so now I can pull my gun. You're going to jail. You are going to jail. And anybody watching this, if you think that you can use your gun and not see the inside of a jail cell, chances are you're going to be in shock, because you will see the inside of a jail cell. Now, however long you stay there,
might depend on your attorney.
Yeah, you got to get an attorney.
Yeah.
You got to get an attorney. And let's talk about imminence. Imminence, it has to be immediate, right?
Yes.
Give me an example of imminence.
So we can build off of the one that we talked about earlier. We'll go with the alley one just because the knife one or the bar one's a little more nuanced. Mm-hmm. But I'd say by the time that they show you that they have a gun and they're reaching for it, at that point when they're actively, like I said, reaching and going for it, you don't need to wait to see how long or big the gun is, right? They're reaching for a gun and there's no one else that they could be pulling it on except you. They're coming towards you, all that. Your life is now essentially in immediate danger, right? I mean, within less than a few seconds, your life could be ended. So that essentially would be immediate. But if you have somebody who is 40 yards away coming at you with the bat, is not necessarily immediate, right? Especially if you have a car that you can drive away in, or you have a house that you can go into and lock the door. Like at that point, if that person's 40 yards away, or from our people who don't, for 120 feet, that's a lot of space to cover on foot, especially for somebody who's not a seasoned runner. You've got a little bit of time to explore other options. So there will be no need for you to pull a gun on somebody that far away when they're not immediately putting your life in danger.
I should run?
If you can.
If I can.
I mean, maybe not run. Like I said, get back in your car, drive off. Yeah. Save your knees for another day.
All right. All right. So, yeah. That's absolutely right. And I tell students, your number one job is to get home at the end of the day. When you leave your house, you're not looking for trouble, but trouble may find you. But your job is to get home at the end of the day. So adrenaline. All right. Now, you as someone that has taken some type of hand-to-hand combat and everything, and did you ever get into competing, or you just did training? So you competed?
I competed a little bit.
All right. So in the moment when you were competing, your adrenaline is pumping, right? The chances of you feeling the pain that we see, and we're like, oh, how can he survive that punch, and so on and so forth. You're not feeling it in the moment.
You can't focus on it.
So let's carry that over into this. In the moment, your adrenaline is pumping. Your brain is probably skewed a little bit. It distorts your perception, distance, time, sound. How are we supposed to combat that? How do we? Okay, let's just say it's after the fact. Okay, so something has happened. You've pulled your gun, or you've used a knife or some type of deadly force against someone, and your adrenaline is still pumping. And now time seems like it's taken forever. When people try to talk to you, what should you do?
I'm assuming that after the situation, the people would be most likely be the cops.
Most likely be the police.
Okay. Let them know that you don't want to speak unless your lawyer or attorney's present. Your attorney's present, right? That would be my thought and suggestion.
Do you have a legal right to do that?
Yeah. I say don't let people tell you otherwise. So
Okay.
but definitely make sure that you have one on standby. Just because I've seen some legal situations that can easily change with the presence of an attorney, versus doing self-representation. But I would definitely say, don't speak to anybody immediately. Reason being, like you said, during that time, your adrenaline is sky high during the moments. And then afterwards, it's still high. So even what you recollect from the moment and after the moment, they could easily be two different things. Same brain, different situations, different perceptions. And then by the time that your adrenaline is down, you may not have a third perception or a third save file or memory file, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say, if you can speak, tell them that you would not like to answer any questions without your attorney present.
I agree, because one, they're showing up, and most people think, and I'm probably going to get myself in trouble for this, but most people think that police are supposed to enforce the laws. I would challenge that, because most police don't know the laws. Not all of them, anyway.
I used to work across from City Hall. Yeah.
They know some of them. They know just enough to do their job on a daily basis in most cases, unless this person was, had a law degree or someone that practiced law or something like that. But most of the time they don't know the law. So they know the few laws that they need to know to be able to keep the peace, write tickets, and take people to jail.
Right.
And guys, don't look, leave the comments alone. That's my opinion and my perspective. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that, because they're hired to do a job. Right. In most cases, most police officers that are of good nature, they just want to go home at the end of the day. But when they drive up on your crime scene and you start talking, sometimes you leave them no other option than to put you in cuffs and take you to jail. Now, I already said you're going to go to jail either way, because if you're the one with the gun and there's a body, 9 times out of 10, you're going to see the inside of a cell until your lawyer arrives. But talking, because your perception was already screwed, and I'm getting it back to your perception was already skewed. You're already, you're hopped up on adrenaline. Hopefully, when your adrenaline starts coming down, you realize that you're not hurt. Because that's a real thing too. And we talk about that in the Surviving a Violent Encounter, how things can happen to you and you not realize it because your adrenaline's up. Like you said, when you're in the heat of battle, you don't have time to think about that. You don't feel it. But you have to be clear enough to know that, hey, I can't talk to anyone until I speak to my attorney, because clarity is skewed. Speed slows down, things of that nature. So, since you've started so let's take it into recent history, because you had the background. Since you've started taking classes with DJR, what has been your biggest takeaway? What has been your biggest aha moments, or what have you seen to change your mindset? What's your biggest mindset shift? Let's take a quick pause because this really matters. If you carry a firearm, the law isn't optional, and it's not something you can sort out after the fact, because the law isn't an afterthought. It's the framework your decision lives inside. Here's the reality. Gear won't save bad decisions, and ignorance of the law doesn't protect you from consequences. That's why understanding the legal use of force has to come before tactics, before gear, and before confidence. If you're ready to train with intention, take a look at the DJR Empowerment Academy, where we start with foundations like the legal use of force. You'll find the link in the show notes below. Know your thresholds, know your boundaries, and know the law first. Now let's get back to the show. What's your biggest mindset shift?
If I'm being humble here, it's just realizing how much I don't know. All right. And the reason for that is a lot of people and a lot of, what I hear, especially when I talk with friends, peers, whatever, think it's very black and white. That kind of like we talked about, somebody pulls a gun, you pull a gun, obviously whoever wins lives. And then because you were defending yourself, well, cop shouldn't be mad at you. Judge is going to you'll be fine. Not the case. There's so much more to it than just the situation itself. It's the way that you interact with the cops. It's the way that you have the preparation of, having your attorney. If you have if you have family, notifying them, giving them a call if you're able to, or making that your first call and preparing them for what's going to come. There's the legal aspect as far as like the battles that may come, going to court, all those kinds of things. Like there's so much more in this world than just the actual altercation. So I think my biggest takeaway really, like I said, is just realizing how much more there is to learn and how many different types of situations you can be in, and really how prepared you need to be. Not even just the physical, having the tactical flashlights and pins and stun guns and mace and like whatever you want to have, like your everyday carries, but the mental preparation that it takes, knowing when this situation arises. Because if you find yourself in, any kind of deadly situation, only a certain amount of things I think will happen afterwards. And I'm realizing that now. And once again, I may be wrong. Maybe my words later. But realizing that, cops are going to show up. You can expect us in a jail cell, whether you're right or wrong. That will be found out later. All of these things. It's like, how do you handle these steps? How do you prepare for these steps? So, like I said, realizing how much more I need to learn. And then just realizing the mental preparation that you need to have to handle the situations as they come.
Yeah, and it's good to have a good imagination. Yeah. Because it can help you get the mental thing straight. And I was talking yesterday to someone, and we were talking about how much do you imagine yourself acting in a self-defense situation? Do you just walk aimlessly around in life, or do you picture, okay, in this instant, if something was to happen, what would I do? And it's not wanting something to happen. It's not living in fear. It's in this moment. Let's just say, for example, when my wife and we go out to dinner or whatever, or, I'm out somewhere where I've never been. Are you seeing what you need to see to be able to defend yourself in the moment legally? Right? You don't want to get yourself in trouble. You don't want to get yourself trapped, first of all. And if you do, you don't want to get yourself into a point where you have a legal issue. But you're on point. You're on point. It's like you won't eat your words later. Everything you said was completely on point. So, and again, not a lawyer, but I know a little something about the law, especially, in my situation where I have been in a situation where I have been on the wrong side of a gun or the wrong side of a bullet, and realizing that in the moment where I thought I was the good guy, I was the bad guy. Or I was part of the group that were the bad guys. I didn't do anything myself. I didn't do anything. I don't know if the statute of limitations ran out on that yet. But no, I didn't do anything. But I ended up getting shot in a situation, and I didn't do anything. But I was in the area of being guilty by association.
Allegedly.
Right? Allegedly. Allegedly. Yeah. But the guy that ended up shooting me and shooting a good friend of mine at the time, he ended up going to jail because he didn't know the law. He didn't know that he was afforded the right to claim self-defense. Right? So where he was legally in the right, he thought he was led to believe he was legally in the wrong. So then there's another aspect of legal use of force. In the moment, and I'm not going to get into details about it. If you want to know the details, come to my class. I'll tell you.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
He could have walked scot-free as far as the shooting goes, and he didn't because he didn't have someone to have his back. So it was immediate, and it was imminent. It escalated very quickly, and de-escalation and escalation of a situation, right? So you've had the mind shift. What was your mindset on escalation and de-escalation at the time too? Because that's important, right? You have to think about, realize that escalation can happen in a second. De-escalation is going to take time.
Yes.
Okay. An example. You call someone something, or you all right. So when I was coming up, and it's probably still the same, if you say something about somebody's mother, it goes from 0 to 1,000 instantly. But if you try to walk that back, you can't go from 1,000 to 0 because now you got to calm down. Now this person's all hopped up and they escalated from 0 to hands-on immediately. And now you can't walk that back. Well, in the realm of protecting yourself, just taking that bar situation we were talking about, it might start as an innocent shove or an innocent push, but if you say the wrong thing, that person gets mad and you get into a verbal ping pong match that now everybody's watching. They're like, okay, somebody takes out the phone and goes, oh, I want to be the first to the internet on this. I'm going to, and now it's escalated. And now, okay, he pulls a knife. Now, how can you de-escalate that? De-escalation in a situation of law versus, or should I, or can I, is so fragile. So the speed in which it happens can be disconcerting to people, because they're like, whoa, I didn't mean it like that. And, all I did was step on your sneaker and all of a sudden you want to put hands on. Well, as long as you remain innocent, do what you got to do. Right. So your adrenaline and everything can absolutely distort your reality. So now let's talk about accountability.
Okay.
What's your accountability legally if you decide to carry a gun on a day-to-day basis? Right? Because me, I carry every day. Every day. It's very rare that you find me outside my house without a gun of some kind. And if I don't have a gun, I got a knife, right? So I got some way to protect myself. Having been down that road before, I don't want to ever be in that road again. But what is your idea of accountability legally when it comes to carrying firearms? Whether and give me your answer, whether it's popular or not.
Okay. That's a really good question. I would put it as you are accountable and responsible for everything you do and everything that you have on you, right? Essentially, you are responsible for the decisions that you make. You decided to put the gun in the holster and hopefully it's in a holster.
Yeah.
You decided to put the gun in the holster and put it on your belt or put it in your waistband, whether it's tucked in or whether it's the outside belt, whatever kind of holster you have. You decided to put it on your body and walk out the house. You understand by walking out your house with it that you will have to handle whatever comes with it, and it is on you, right? If somebody comes up and takes your gun, well, that is because you did a poor job of securing it. If you have to pull out your gun and use it, well, thankfully, you have it. But understand that you made the decision to have that in case you need it. So you had the decision before you stepped out that house to put it on. While most people, may not agree with that and be like, oh, well, I had to, or this is it. It doesn't matter, dude. You Your life is built on the choices that you make and the decisions that you make.
Mhm.
Your life is built on the choices that you make and the decisions that you make, right? And we have the opportunity to decide that for ourselves every single day, thankfully. So if you walk out, if you use it, somebody takes it, if you brandish it, or if you show it, because here in the state we don't have the brandishing law, right? Which you kindly taught me, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So it's like if you show it, if you are in a building that has a policy, not a law, but a policy against, having firearms in the building and somebody sees it, well, you understand that you decided to walk out the house and go get you a box of cereal or go get you some soda or whatever from the store, right? That says you cannot have firearms inside. That's on you. Don't get mad at somebody else for calling you out. Don't get mad because somebody else saw it. You brought it. That means you assumed or understood the risk that you had taking it out the house.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my ideal accountability. You are responsible and need to maintain accountability for any choice or decision that you make. Just own up to it.
Yeah, most people think it wasn't my fault. Well, you decided to carry the gun. So to me, your accountability goes up to, and I guess in class I talk about you being responsible for every bullet that leaves your gun. Yeah. Your accountability travels with that gun at the speed of light. That until that bullet stops, and even after it stopped, depending on where it stopped, you're responsible for. With the legally, if you, let's just say you get attacked, right? And here's a little bit for you guys. If you get attacked and you use your gun, if you're getting attacked, a lot of times it's happening hand to hand. The person's right there on you. And it's not like the movies where you shoot them, they die, or they don't die, or disabled, or whatever the case is. 9 times out of 10, that bullet went through them. Where'd the bullet go? Where did it end up? Did it end up in someone's car, in someone's house? God forbid, in someone else? You're responsible for it. And people want to say, well, I'm not responsible for everyone around me. Yes, you are. That's rule number 4. Know your target and everything beyond it. So your accountability not only travels with you, it travels with that bullet as it goes. And I see so many times that people don't want to be accountable for their actions. And we see in the news, and I do my best to stay out of the conversations about the news and different organizations and what they do and who did what and so on and so forth. But it's hard not to see it. It seems that the law wants to put all of the ownership on us and none of the ownership on them. Because you see police officers all the time doing stuff and they all of a sudden not accountable.
They should not be doing, yeah.
We've seen people in recent history use their firearms, law enforcement of some kind, and there's no accountability, but they want to hold us accountable for everything. So people, if you're listening, just know that you are accountable for everything you do. And when things happen and you end up in court, your agenda is not on the table. The legal aspect of it is going to be, they're going to do everything they can. If you're innocent, you're innocent. Make sure your attorney fights for you. If you're not innocent, they're going to use everything within their power to prove that you're not innocent and you're held accountable. But even if you're innocent, let's talk about that. Even if you're innocent, but you're accountable. Because accountability has a negative connotation, but if you're innocent, but you're still accountable, how do you handle that? Like I was accountable, I had to be accountable to the fact that I was in a situation where people could have really, really got hurt. I didn't see it that way at the time. My accountability was skewed. I was being accountable to some friends and not the whole situation. But I wasn't innocent. If you're innocent and you defend yourself, what kind of mindset does that set for you? You hurt somebody. even if it's the person that was trying to hurt you. How do you think you would deal with that?
I'll say this one might be a little unique. And the reason I say that is because of what you touched on before with imagination. Imagining what I do in certain scenarios. And having mentally and also in reality being through some stressful situations. I mean, yeah, you're innocent. You defended your life. You feel good about that. Or I would feel good about that. But you also have to go home realizing that you greatly damaged somebody or potentially took somebody's life. And like you said, as long as you're innocent, I'm assuming that means that there were no innocent bystanders that got injured, right? Hopefully nobody's personal property either. I have a feeling that would sit with me for some time. Especially as you sit there in the quiet, the adrenaline's gone now. It's nobody but you and you. You're sitting there, and I don't see how, unless, once again, this is, I'd assume somebody's first time, not like a seasoned killer, right? You're sitting there in the quiet. It's just you and your mind. And now you're starting to recount all the things that happen. Right? The beauty of our mind is, just from what I've learned over time, is that your subconscious captures pretty much everything. But obviously we have our filter to our conscious, otherwise it would overload our mind. So as you sit there, and over time, whether you slept already or not, you have things that slowly start to creep back in, little details that you start to remember. It might even be the expression on the bullet that took that person's life. You remember watching their body move, those little twitches. Those things can imprint themselves on your mind. So I think I'd be able to find solace in the fact that I was innocent. So at least, I'm not going to jail. I don't have to worry about my family, not having me home or anything like that. But it would be tough knowing that I'm also walking around with something that nobody else in my house can see but me. No one else has to deal with but me. I have to sit with the fact that I took that life. I saw that person take their last breath, and I was the reason for that. And obviously this is coming from somebody I would assume that has good moral standing. It would be tough. I do believe that it'll be very tough for most people to handle that situation, especially days after the fact, knowing that you were responsible for ending somebody's life here on earth. Yeah. But hopefully you still find solace in the fact that at least you did what you had to do to make sure that your life didn't get taken.
Yeah. Spot on, man. It's going to be a heavy mental weight. It's not like the movies where you see the guys, and I mean, PTSD is a real thing. People think, oh man, get over it now. But you see that forever. You feel that forever. If you were on the receiving end, you feel that forever. It's unexplainable.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's unexplainable what it can do to you mentally. And you just gotta, talk to somebody, get some help. Mental health is so it's not as taboo as it used to be. But it used to be really, really taboo. Now everybody says talk to somebody.
Yeah.
It's like it's not so much of, oh man, I'm not gonna tell somebody else my problems. Right. Now you have to get it out, especially in this situation. If you saw somebody die at your hands, that's tough.
Mind if I share a story on that?
No, go ahead, man.
So I won't get into the details of how I found out the story, right? But there was a guy I knew. He served, and he was on deployment, holding down the base. And where they were, you had assailants of all kinds, right? All ages. So there's a very young boy coming up to the base, strapped with bombs. You have two options. Either you let him come in and blow a hole in the base, whether it be the walls or further, or you end him where he stands. The guy I knew had to look through that scope, and he said that in that kid's eyes, he was about the same age as his oldest son. So when he had to pull that trigger, granted it was for the greater good, right? He said it felt like he had to do that to his own son. And it's like, this can get so real, and you would never expect that. And you never really know what people are carrying around with them, right? Like, I didn't know that until I was told about it from somebody really close to him. And it explained why his behavior was the way it was once he came back. And
just couldn't unsee that.
No. And I mean,
unsee that.
It affected everything in his life when he came back. I mean, it was hard for him to interact with his own son because he felt like just a few months ago, he took his own son's life. And you can't just tell somebody, get over that.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a reminder every single day and you want to come back and love your family and take him to the park and do all these things, and he's in sports and stuff like that. But every time you see him, it reminds you of what you had to do. And you know you had to do it. Like you said, you know you were innocent. You did the right thing, right? You saved your comrades. But at what cost? At what cost?
That I can't imagine. When we do our ladies class, that's kind of the thing that they don't like about the class, because I challenge them. Just like I challenge the guys in the co-ed class. Most guys have that problem when it comes to women. They can't see themselves defending themselves to the death against a woman in the moment. It goes away after a while. Once you realize, once you get cut or something, that goes away.
Right.
But it causes a millisecond of indecision. Women have indecision against the children because they can't, because they're maternal, they're loving, they're bred that way. They have a hard time seeing taking a child's life. Anybody should have a hard time taking a child's life, but a woman could take a woman's life in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah. Pull some hair,
men have that problem.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine, and I hope I never have to be there, take a child's life. In bringing it to where we are, there's so many children out there that want to do harm. In your friend's case, I'm sure that child, while he might have wanted to be like whoever he was around, that's not why he had bombs strapped around him. He had bombs strapped around him because they figured the Americans in their bleeding hearts are not going to kill the child. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not unlike the gang system here in America and the drug game. And the fact that they have kids doing stuff because they feel that the cops ain't going to do nothing to this kid. The cops have rules of engagement. If a child comes up to me with a gun or trying to kill me, I have to make that hard decision. Hopefully I have another option. But again, my job is to go home at the end of the day, right?
Right.
If that child's keeping me from, and I say child as in man child, not an itty bitty child, right. Itty bitty child, I'm just gonna kick them in the butt, tell them to get on, right? Yeah. Get on home, right? But I'm talking about these 15, 16, 17-year-old 6'3" children.
Yeah.
Right? They still have the mind of a child and the body of an adult. They're still a child though. So I would hope that I'm able to do like, your buddy did, and like, it's for the greater good. If you came in here to kill a bunch of people, you're no longer, you're doing adult things.
Yes. With adult consequences.
You're with adult consequences. So that part of the accountability is tough. Because you have to live with it. You might be legally right. You might stay out of jail. But you still have to answer to your actions. So as we wind down, I guess what is it that you as growing up around firearms and training and everything, and I'm not sure the level of information you got from your dad and your granddad about the legal side of it. After attending the concealed carry class and the legal use of force class, what was it that and you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but what did you think that maybe I might need to unlearn this? What did you have in your mind that just like, you know what, I need to take that out and unlearn that?
Oh, good question.
I know I put him on the spot.
Yeah. Y'all got to get him in the comments for me. Everything is not as it seems. Everything is not as it seems. In two perspectives. One, objectively looking at the situation, you realize that there may be more details that can switch. Like I said, the overall path, the legal path of a certain situation. But then also there's the everything is not as it seems, such as the way that you recall the event. There was a training video that you had showed us, and it was a pretty seasoned guy. He said he trains often, shoots often, all of that. And they had a training exercise where you have somebody who's essentially committing a robbery in a cafe. And after this guy shoots, once he sees somebody else pulls their gun, obviously at this point, you're now in defense mode. He pulls his gun, he shoots, and attacker goes away, right? Training exercise, he would have died in real life, or at least been bleeding heavily.
Right.
But thankfully, attacker escapes. He said that he recalled shooting 3 times. It was actually 8. So like you said, when your adrenaline's pumping, your sound, the sound that you perceive is distorted. The memories that you have are distorted. The things that you see are distorted. Sure. I think there's a lot more tunnel vision when that adrenaline starts to kick in.
Absolutely.
All right. So, you hear just the loud bangs and you try to say, yeah, I heard, 3 loud bangs. Right. And then from your gun, because you have another gun here and you have another gun there. So I would say that for me, I'm having to unlearn the fact that thinking is black and white. Pretty simple, easy to figure out. Go home. Not the case.
Nope, not at all.
No.
Not at all. And I told the story of a video I saw one time, and I have this, and I've been contemplating whether I want to show it in class, because we have so much negative connotation about police officers. And people would look at this video and say the police officer was wrong in killing the guy in the video. He was wrong in the way he dealt with the situation. But the black and white part of it is the gentleman that was attacking the police officer, one, wrong. You're going to lose that fight every time. People would say it's black and white that the cop shot the guy wrongly in the head. Okay. I'll give you that. But they didn't look at the actions of the other guy. Right? So the black and white part of it. Was he attacking the cop? Yes. Did he have a weapon? No. But he did have his hands up attempting to fight the cop. The cop gave him orders to get down on the ground. He did not. One little thing he did, and this will go out to the guys that wear their pants down around there. He went to pull his pants up. And in pulling his pants up, he put his hand behind his back. And as he came back around, I could see that the police officer thought he had a gun, and he shot him. So the whole going back to everything isn't black and white, whereas we see he's innocent, he's not innocent. In this particular case, it was kind of both.
Yeah.
He wasn't obeying the orders of getting down on the ground, where in the moment he probably felt like, I don't have to get on the ground, I didn't do anything. Well, the video started, the police officer punched him in the face.
Okay.
So now he's crossed over into defending himself. Well, the police officer's got a gun out. While you might think you're in the right because you were attacked by a police officer, he's got a gun out. And then you move in a way that he felt threatened. So people think that's unpopular opinion on who was innocent. I don't think either one of them was innocent.
Yeah.
But in the moment, did the cop think he was going to get shot? The guy obviously didn't think he was going to get shot because he wouldn't have been trying to fight. I mean, the police officer clearly had his gun out. So I don't know if I made my point, kind of, but it was just the whole thing of things aren't always as black and white as you think.
Right.
Right. And you have to realize that you have to kind of imagine what would happen in a situation. So going back to the should I shoot or can I, you kind of have to train your brain. Because if you don't, it's just like using the gun. If you have never used it or never practiced using it, you may find yourself on the wrong end of the law. I don't know.
Right.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. It is. I mean, and even in that situation, for one, you know, I'm a huge advocate for wear a belt, use a belt. Funny enough, we had a young kid stay over this past weekend. You know, my son's friend, he wanted to spend the night or spend the weekend. That's fine. My girlfriend went to go pick him up, and she told me that he didn't have a belt. I was like, okay, that's fine. But if we go out anywhere, I will be giving him a belt. Mm-hmm. I was like, you're not going out with me and sagging your pants. That's not happening, right?
How old is he?
He's 12.
12.
Yep. Wow. 12. Yeah, man. Yeah. So that's a different discussion. But you know, so I'm already just a huge advocate for wear your pants the way they're supposed to be, you know, the way they're supposed to be worn, up on your waist. But even in those kinds of situations, like most people wouldn't think like, oh man, you know, like, well, if I wear my pants law, you know, somebody's gonna think I have a gun. Well, for one, perception is everything. Quite literally, before I left and came here, I was telling my son, I was like, perception is everything. First impressions are key. If somebody looks at you and you fit the bill of a stereotype, doesn't matter what the stereotype is, can you blame them? If you're dressed like it, if you look like it, if you walk like it, like whatever the stereotype is, can you blame somebody? We say don't judge a book by its cover because it sounds nice, but it's not reality. We will look at somebody and judge them. I dare anybody to tell me that you have looked at somebody and not judged them. Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I say that to people that got tattoos all over their face. Like, you are being judged immediately.
Immediately, right? So yeah, in that situation, like you said, you know, people may be able to say after the fact, he didn't have a weapon. If you were the cop in that situation and you already have somebody who looks, I mean, they're aggressive, they're coming after you, and then they reach behind their back where you can't see their hand anymore. And I mean, yes, they're lifting up their pants, but in that same action, you could be lifting something off of your belt, and that's why your pants come up. There are a lot of different things that could be happening. So I haven't seen the video that you're talking about, so I can't really speak on it intelligently, but just based on what you told me.
I'll send it to you, man. It's
perfect.
It would be a good teaching tool. I just know it would cause arguments in class because people would see it so differently, you know, and I can see it from their point of view as well. But in the moment, it's my life or yours.
I'm not waiting to find out.
Yeah. I'm not waiting to find out, because you wait to find out, that moment of indecision could mean you're not going home.
Right.
So, but man, it's been great talking to you, man.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this.
Oh man, it's good when we can get together and we can break down some stuff. You know, hopefully, you know, people got some good information, and hopefully that the comments are lighting up. Guys, if you have any questions, just go ahead and put it down in the comments. I'm sure myself will respond to it. And you know, Bakari, you know, if you look to see in the comments, anybody comment, man, just feel free, man. He's an open book. And when's your next class? What next class are you coming to?
I will be signing up for the conflict avoidance class. And then I'm saving the home planning for the last one. Okay. You know, have as much detail as I can, or much information as I can to get the right home plan. The
conflict avoidance class is fun because we talk a lot about what we talked about in this, but we go deeper.
Okay.
Right? Because conflict avoidance, it's a huge mental game, because especially as men,
let that ego get
that ego.
And you let that ego get to you, man.
Yeah, that ego, man. That ego can drive you nuts. And you know, and ladies, y'all attitude, y'all can get you too. So we got to avoid the conflict at all costs, to make sure that we get home safely. We get home to our families, and that's it. So at the end of the day, This question isn't about confidence. It's about judgment. The moment you act, the story of what happened stops being yours alone. It gets examined, reconstructed, and measured against standards that don't care about how prepared you felt, only whether your decisions were justified. This conversation was about slowing down the moment, before the moment, understanding where the lines actually are, and accepting the responsibility that comes with choosing to carry. Because tools don't make decisions, people do. And no piece of equipment can compensate for a choice that isn't grounded in law. You must be accountable, and you must make sure your decisions can stand on their own. Stay safe, stay prepared, and stay empowered. We'll see you later.